Hey guys, welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. So today's video, it's going to be an update on Flux. They just had their State of the Union a few days ago. We're going to go over some of the news that came out from that and things to expect in 2023, right? One of the big things was that they dropped their light paper for the proof of useful work, which is something we've been waiting for a while. So going to go over the key points there. So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. So let's get started, guys. So first off, right off the bat, the halving. Halving is coming quick. It is about 3 weeks away now. I think it's February 7th or 8th, somewhere around there, one of those 2 days. But it is coming, guys. So something you're interested in mining or accumulating. I know the prices have been going up, so back in that first video was the time to really accumulate more. But still not a bad price if you're bullish. Not financial advice. Do your thing, but something to consider that it is coming. We're only 3 weeks away. So let's take a look at the overall hash rate. So if we go on two miners, we can see it's been fairly steady. Did go up a little bit. I honestly was expecting a bigger jump. Ultimately did actually dump yesterday, surprisingly. But it did go up slightly. Didn't go up a whole lot. Let's look at the difficulty. It's going to be the same trend. Going up slightly, but nothing like crazy. And it probably has to do with the fact that GPU mining has been profitable, right? For those of you following Nexa, made a video about a week ago regarding the 4070 Ti. I was looking at that and just happened to notice that Nexa was pumping. Didn't really pay much attention to it because I thought it was going to be like a 1 or 2 day pump, but it's been about a week now and it's still decently profitable. So that could have something to do with it, which is kind of surprising. So for those of you guys GPU mining, that's probably where they're at right now. But still did see a slight increase, so something there. One of the biggest news things that did come out from the State of the Union was this. So they announced their next parallel asset, and it's going to be Algorand. So if you're bullish on Algo, this is good news for you. So the snapshot's going to be sometime in Q1. They didn't give specific dates. They just kind of announced that it's going to be Algo. Nothing really new there. The other big piece of news that we got was regarding the Project Thunder, which is now the Cumulus Fractus, right? So they did give a ballpark number as to what to expect. So it looks like it's going to be, they gave the range of like 15 to 18%. So we'll go with the worst case scenario that it'll be 15% more, right? So give or take, it's going to be about 0.85 flux. So on top of the 5.625 you're getting every like 2 weeks or so, you can add 0.85 more to that, at least for now. Obviously, the halving is coming, and it also affects the node rewards. It's not just on the mining side, it's all rewards. So instead, you can cut that in half, and that's what it's going to be in about 3 weeks. But we did get news there. The other tidbit was, well, it's been on testnet. It didn't really come out here. They didn't talk about it too much, but the hard drive size requirement is 10 gigs. Not 100% if that's only for the testnet right now or if that's going to be officially it. Because in the past, I do remember them saying something about having the different tiers being 20, 50, and 100 gigs. What that may be is that it may be the Fractus might extend to the other nodes, right? So to like the Stratus and the Nimbus, and that might be what those higher requirements are. But as of now, it's 10 gigabytes. Not sure if that's going to remain, so it's good use for those of you guys who do have, a spare hard drive or who are chia mining and gave up on it and you still have those drives. It is a way to earn a little bit more if you already have a node, right? It's a good way to get easy passive income if that is your thing. So they didn't give a full date as far as like when it's officially going to launch, et cetera, et cetera. Just know that it's coming, right? It's in testnet. It's going to come sometime soon. So now the big thing, right, was the proof of useful work light paper. So we're going to go over it real quick. I'm not going to go into too many details because it is fairly long. Not super long, but just want to go through it. So it is kind of what we're expecting. We're all kind of assuming that it most likely we weren't going to be able to use for the most part like our whole mining setup, right? Because the downfall with, let's say you have a rig of like 3090s, right? The downfall for using it for computational power would be the fact that it's on 1x risers, right? So the limitation is the motherboard, how many 16x slots you have. Okay, so it's going to limit it in that sense, but what it's seems like it's approaching more is for people who have, let's say, their main computer and it's a decent computer, right? It's your gaming computer, it's your media creation computer, whatever. Let's say you have your 3090, good CPU, etc., etc. That's what this is kind of looking for. So it's going to give you a way to actually use that while it's idle, right? Typically, like for example, I don't really game too much. I'm working all the time. I'm out of the house all the time. So during that time, I can put that guy to work. So the way it's going to work is that they're going to have a marketplace for it. If that is your use case where you're not mining, you're just going to have it idle, you can have it set up where it'll be in that marketplace. So typically, if you have a more powerful PC, it'll be for like, these are the use cases they're giving. It'll be for like, this is perfect timing with all the AI stuff going on. You couldn't have timed it any better. But one of the use cases would be for like artificial intelligence, so like deep learning setups, right? Which you need a good graphics card, a good processor, because it is very, very intensive, right? So you'd be able to put it up on that marketplace, so you can, put it for rent essentially, right? So you can make money off of it while you're not using it. Okay, but again, this is going to be on the higher end. So the way it seems like it's going to work is you're going to have your system, you're going to benchmark it, and it'll kind of tell you what it can be geared towards, right? So on the top end, I would think would be the AI. The other use case they have is like rendering. So if you have, a decent setup there, that's another option. The other one they talked about was headless gaming. So think about like cloud gaming, right? Being able to use like, so you have a 3090, you have good bandwidth, so that way somebody else can rent it out essentially, right? Let's say they don't want to pay these crazy prices for a new GPU and just play every so often, they'd be able to rent it out, right? They didn't get into the specifics of how that's going to work, other than that there's going to be a separate marketplace for this, right? So again, you're going to benchmark it. It has to pass certain benchmarks, and that'll kind of tell you where it would be geared towards, whether it would be more suited for AI, rendering, headless gaming, storage, etc., etc. So those are the main examples they gave. So let's keep going down. Utilization. So this is another key thing, is that it gives some like basic benchmarks, and it looks like it's pretty wide open, right? So even guys with like older gear, older equipment, it would be able to be utilized in some way, right? So again, depending on what it is, obviously if it's older equipment, it's not going to be used for like the high-end stuff, but it seems like they will be able to find a use case for it, right? Just depending on what they're doing. So it gave like the CPU and motherboard requirements, which is pretty wide open, and even with like GPUs, right? All the way down to like 16 series, any of these other guys. So it seems like it'll be open to a lot of people, which would be really good to, get other people aside from just miners, right? Again, people like gamers, content creators, etc., who have these good PCs that are just sitting idle. It'd be a way for them to make more income, right? And again, onboard more people onto the blockchain. Okay, so it is something that is pretty cool. So it gives more details about it, how it would work. Nothing else really there. So the unfortunate part though, they didn't give any like price structure, right? They kind of did a little breakdown of what you're gonna need, right? Or what the primary components are. So like here, the price structure is composed of 3 primary components: active rental cost, storage rental cost, and bandwidth utilization cost. So unfortunately though, they didn't really give any like breakdowns as far as like what the incentives are gonna be. And again, that's what we're most not necessarily concerned with, but interested in, right? Because that would, give us a better idea of what to expect. They also didn't give a breakdown of the different tiers, right? So we saw the minimum requirements, right? Meaning that it's going to be open to a lot of people, but it didn't necessarily give us a breakdown of like, okay, if you want to focus on the high end, this is what you would need. Or if you have X amount of, X16 slots with, 3090 and up, this is what you would need, or this is what you would get, etc., etc. They didn't really give us that much of a breakdown, only because it's just not live yet, right? So hopefully we get some more news on that we can kind of see. But it seems like it's being more geared towards people who just have those things sitting idle versus people like building rigs specifically for this, right? One other thing they did mention in that State of the Union was the fact that you would have the ability to, for example, if you're mining, right, you have your mining rig set up, that it would be able to alternate. So you could have it set up to be mining, and let's say a profitable job came along on the marketplace, that it would be able to switch over to that and then once that is completed, switch back over to mining. So that seems like it'd be pretty cool, especially if it'd be automated, right? Especially if you were to be able to set it up and it would just do it on its own. That'd be a pretty cool different use case, right? So it just depends on how good that user interface is, especially if it's easy, right? It could be something similar to like, I think that's one of the reasons that like NiceHash and such was so popular, is because you just download it, super easy to set up your account, super easy to get it going, right? So if they were to do the same type of interface for this, it could get a lot of the more casual people or like gamers, people who do have that hardware just sitting extra. Like for example, right now, I'm not GPU mining on my PC. That would be a good way for me to use it, right? Especially a lot of us who are gamers, we tend to have like higher end stuff, right? So that's what it mainly seems like it's geared towards, just for that, a lot of that idle computational power, right? And again, the thing that has me excited is all this AI stuff, right? Because again, that stuff takes a ton of resources. It is what is super popular right now, especially with all this chat GPT stuff. So the timing couldn't have been any better. And it is interesting to see how they're going to be able to use that, right? How they're going to be able to monetize that, whether, other projects join in with them or how they integrate, right? It's going to be very, very interesting. A lot of good stuff. So those were the main things that stood out to me. It's not going to be a super long one. For those of you guys who are newer to Flux, or you've kind of heard of it, or even if you've been mining it but never really deep dived into it, I would highly recommend watching the whole thing. It is super long though. It's like 2 hours, but if you're unfamiliar with Flux and what they're doing, what they're trying to do, I would highly recommend watching it. I'm going to post the link in the description. It's very entertaining. If you've never, heard of any of the interviews with like Dan Keller, hilarious. He's like a straight shooter. I think that's a big part of the reason why so many people are so bullish on Flux. He's such a good dude, right? Like he's one of the few people that actually look forward to his AMAs, the interviews, everything. He's just such a straight shooter. You can hear the passion in his voice and just all his interviews. Super funny guy. He's been having this beef with ICP. I don't know if you guys been following on Twitter, but he took a couple jabs at him even in here. Hilarious. But regardless, pretty good stuff coming up. Looks like a promising year. They did a ton of stuff last year. So again, if you're unfamiliar, watch it because they go over all the partnerships, everything they accomplished last year, which is just almost mind-blowing. They're, in so many different aspects. Even right here, just this proof of use for work stuff. It's combining so many other projects into one thing. This is what has a lot of us so bullish on it, whether you're mining it or even just as an investor. If you're looking at it, take a good look at it, right? I'm sure some of you guys have heard of like Render Token. That's integrated into here. Decentralized internet, that's in here. Decentralized storage, that's here. It's replacing like I said, just Render, Filecoin. It's a lot of these projects all into one. And right now they're getting it going. It's not just like conceptual, it's there. They're like, it's crazy. It's, again, I would highly recommend watching it if you're just learning about it, right? For those of us that are into it, kind of been aware. It's even for me. I love reading up on news, and it's almost hard for me to even keep up because there's so much stuff going on with them. But all right, guys. Hopefully you got some value from the video. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you look into Flux if you weren't before. Not shilling them or anything. They're just one of the projects I'm most into, and they did have some good news coming out, right? So hopefully again you did learn something. Thank you for watching, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and I am out.